Hey everybody, this is your Digital Super Saiyan 3 back here with another video, and you know what? Spider-Man! I love Spider-Man. I love the movies, the comics, the video games, but one thing I love about Spidey is his rogues gallery. This time around, unlike my top 10 Crash Bandicoot villains list, I'm gonna make this a two-parter. Doing one set of 5 and then the other set of 5. I'll do the first 5 and then the second set of 5 with the top 5. But anyway, these are my top 10 favorite Spider-Man villains. Number 10 is the Hobgoblin. First appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 238 back in 1983. Now, what really put Hobgoblin on this list was mainly his voiceover appearance in the 90s show, voiced by the ever-so-awesome Mark Hamill. And yes, like I said before in my top 10 Crash Bandicoot villains list, when I talked about Pyro, the fire elemental, any character voiced by Mark Hamill is sure as hell a winner in my book. But also the Hobgoblin, when they first created him, they had him be like a sort of mystery over who was it that this character was, when he clearly was this guy by the name of Roderick Kingsley, a fashion designer who basically was also a crime boss that dealt with petty crime and blackmail. Roderick Kingsley, one of Kingsley's men, was on the run from Spider-Man when he discovered one of the Goblin's old hideouts. One of the Green Goblin's old hideouts. There, one of the men, that same guy that worked for Kingsley, reported back to him and told him what he found. But then Kingsley used the equipment of the Goblin to kill that same guy. Then he took the Goblin's gear and made his own costume. His own Goblin costume, which is more of a yellowish instead of a green, at a orange hoodie and orange hood and cape combo, as well as a blue and orange costume, and you got the Hobgoblin. Having the same sort of weaponry as the Green Goblin, he is a force to be reckoned with. Now, yeah, the Norman Osborn would resurface as the Green Goblin to take back his mantle, but the Hobgoblin was a fun villain, and I did also love his stage in the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions video game. So, that's a plus for me. So, anyway, the Hobgoblin, like I said, yes, he has most of the same weaponry and powers as the Green Goblin, except he doesn't have the insanity that the Goblin has with his serum, because Kingsley sort of just perfected Norman's original serum. Number 9 is Electro. First appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 9 back in 1964. Now, Electro was once a power line worker by the name of Max Dillon. But while working on a power line, he got struck by lightning, infusing him with electricity, turning him into the menacing and electrified foe of Spider-Man, Electro. Electro was also part of the very first incarnation of the Sinister Six, and he's also been a mainstay in the group, having to reappear in different versions of the Sinister Six over the years in both media and in the comics as well. Electro is a mainstay. He's known for his star-shaped mask and his green and yellow costume. And even had his own video game on the PS1 titled Enter Electro. Number 8 is Kraven the Hunter. First appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 15 in 1964. Now, Kraven the Hunter was a really interesting case. Originally, Kraven wasn't really one of my favorite villains, but then when I played his level in Shattered Dimensions and rewatched The Spectacular Spider-Man and watched a few videos with him in it, Kraven sort of became one of my favorites over time. Originally he wasn't, but now he is one of my favorites. And yes, he was also originally part of the Sinister Six. He was part of the very first incarnation of the Sinister Six, alongside the aforementioned Electro. Sergei Kravinoff was all about the thrill of the hunt. He mainly used knives, spears, boluses, but refrained from using guns. And he also had a serum that made him the ultimate hunter, giving him incredible sense of smell, superhuman strength, speed, agility, and reduced aging. And yes, he took this potion from a witch doctor in the comics. Kraven saw Spider-Man as the ultimate thrill, and the ultimate hunt, and the ultimate game, as he's basically vowed to hunt Spider-Man. But the only time he came closest to actually killing Spider-Man was in the story Kraven's Last Hunt, where he apparently shot Spider-Man, buried him alive, then decided to take up Spidey's costume and tried to prove that he was a better Spidey. But then the real Spider-Man survived, because of course Spider-Man did, and he confronted Kraven, but then Kraven later killed himself after Spider-Man confronted him. But of course, no one stays dead forever, and Kraven returned. So, in all that sense, Kraven is a very interesting villain, and I definitely love his many face-offs with the web slinger. So, yeah, there's that. I really hope Insomniac brings him back in the next Spider-Man. I mean, I would love to see their take on the character. Number 7 is The Lizard. First appearing in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 6 back in 1963, Curtis Connors was an expert in cross-species genetics. He lost his arm while studying wildlife in the Everglades. Since then, he had been obsessed with wanting to get his arm back, so he basically created a serum using the DNA of a lizard to grow his arm back. It was both it did grow his arm back, but Connors also learned that it also had some nasty side effects, turning him into a giant mutated lizard man, or a giant genetically walking lizard man. The lizard has superhuman strength, speed, agility. He can climb on walls like Spidey, but except he's a lizard. And he can regenerate. Like I said, he can regenerate. So there's that. And yeah, he was brought to life in 2012's Amazing Spider-Man by actor Rhys Ifans. And since then, he has this personal relationship with Peter Parker because he was one of Peter's mentors in the field of science. And, Peter and Connors got along great. Like, of course, he's a friend of Peter Parker's, and Peter Parker is doing his best to try to stop Connors whenever he comes across him. Yeah, even though Peter did cure Connors in his first appearance, the lizard always found a way to come back because the cure wouldn't last forever. And I love how animalistic and just overall just an interesting foe for Spider-Man to fight. And so to wrap up the first part, number 6 is Tombstone. Lonnie Lincoln was used to be your average delinquent. Oh, sorry. Number 6 is Tombstone. First appeared in Web of Spider-Man number 36 in 1988. Lonnie Lincoln had more of a connection to Robbie Robinson. aka a friend of Peter Parker's at the Daily Bugle. Now, I'm mainly talking about his origin in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. Now, when Lonnie was very young, he got busted by breaking into a convenience store when it was closed. And because of this, he was sent to juvie. Then, he tried to frame Robbie for breaking into a chemical plant. But, when he was running across a catwalk, old Lonnie tripped and lost his balance, falling into a vat of chemicals. And these chemicals, well, made him a walking, as you call it, tombstone. And Tombstone has superhuman strength, invulnerability, is immune to poisonous gas. And overall, I think he's a very interesting mob boss. I could have easily put the Kingpin on this part of the list, or Hammerhead, or even Silvermane, but Tombstone happened to be my favorite of the crime bosses that Spidey has gone up against in his career. Also, I loved his take in the Spectacular Spider-Man, how he was played by both Keith David and he was also voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson when David left the role in the first episode. Since David, I don't know why they didn't keep Keith David as Tombstone, but Kevin Michael Richardson was great as Tombstone to fill in the void, and they even sounded alike. So, in a sense, it was a great Tombstone is such a great character, and I always gotta admit, he became one of my favorites just by me rewatching the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. Anyway, this has been your Digital Super Saiyan 3, and I get to the top 5 next time.